Hey YouTube, this is a new kind of thing. I'm recording this video on my iPod. I'm not quite sure how well it's going to turn out, but I'll find out, I guess. This video is going to be about altars. I found this thing, Moonlit Opal does it, but she does it blog style where she like types things into her blog on, I think it's Blogspot. Could be wrong. And basically it's you pick a letter and you use it for 2 weeks to do bloggy things with pagan stuff. So I decided I'm going to do like a video version of that. So for the next couple of weeks it'll probably be a little more than 2 because I have more things that I want to talk about for A, because I've like made a really big list of stuff that I want to talk about with the letter A than I do with like the letter B, so it'll probably share some of B time. But anyway, I want to talk about altars in this video. Personally, I don't believe that you need an altar. I think that an altar is just as much a tool as any of the other tools that are used within a person's practice. And I personally don't have like a working kind of altar. I do have like a devotional altar where I light candles and incense and stuff for offerings, but I don't so much have a working altar because my parents don't approve. And with my parents not approving, I'm not going to take up a giant space with like a giant altar with like knives and stuff laying on it, because my mom will freak out, and that's just honesty. She will flip the shit out if I do something like that. It's hard enough to like have her come into my room and look at my bookshelf and see the Wicca books sitting over there, and she just, I know she kind of accepts the fact that it's who I am, but she doesn't accept it as it is. So, I don't have a working altar, and for this reason, and for the fact that my practice works perfectly fine without it, I don't think that you specifically need an altar. I know there are people who will yell at me and be like, you can't do anything without the altar. The altar is like the church. And I'm like, no. No, honey, no. The world is the pagan or Wiccan church. You don't need an altar. You don't need the tools. But also I'm going to do a little bit of kind of explaining how an altar works, if you do have one. Altars are basically used to hold tools, to be as like a basic kind of setup for things you'd use for your rituals. Things that are commonly kept on altars are candles that are lit, themes, chalices, god and goddess representations, element representations, offerings, things of this nature, incense, water, commonly just because it represents the element water, anything that goes with a spell you're currently doing is most of the time kept on the altar, crystals you're charging, anything you're charging really. I keep my runes permanently on my like devotional little altar, and my pendulums there too. I don't keep my tarot cards there. Many reasons, mainly because my cat would, for some reason, loves to play with my tarot cards, so I don't put them up there because I feel like they get knocked all over the place. So, but, and then altars, basically, if you do have one and you do insist on having one and using one, would be used most often during like ritual and stuff. But I personally believe, at least, that if you are going to have a working altar, you should use it more often than when you do spells and rituals. You should use it on a daily basis, because that becomes like an energy powerhouse if you use it that much. Because you can even, like, when you ground yourself and center yourself and stuff after your rituals, you could put all your excess energy into the altar instead of back into the earth, and store it later, like store it in there for later, and then you don't have to pull energy from the earth, because sometimes I feel like I'm doing too much of that and then I feel kind of bad about it afterwards. Yeah. But anyway, recap kind of thing. I feel altars are personally unnecessary, at least where I am right now in my practice, while working altars. I do feel that every pagan or Wiccan who does have like a specific deity that they work with, they should have a devotional altar to that deity or those deities if they work with multiple, because that's what I do. Not because I'm right, but because it just seems like that's the logical thing to do. If you're going to work with a deity, you should honor them in some way other than just through prayers and things like that, in a more physical manner. So that's why I think you should have at least a devotional altar. Working altars are a tool. They can store energy just as much as tools can. They can be used to direct energy just as much as tools can. So my advice at the end of this video is to experiment with the use and without the use of an altar. If you always use an altar, do your next ritual without an altar, or without like a table and a cloth. And you can still use the other tools, but just don't set them up in some altar format, or don't use like the same altar you always use. If you insist on using an altar, make like a makeshift one on top of a pillow or something different. Change it up and see what the difference in the energy is, because you may actually like not having the standard always there altar better. You never know until you try. So that's probably all for this video. Much love and bless be. Mwah.